for the prayer. You actually opened exactly how I wanted to. I'm going to ask Alexis Jr. was going to do this, but he got pulled upstairs to help with the children. I can't speak on Mother's Day without acknowledging mothers.
All right.
So I'm actually going to move this because I'm going to light it. So we're going to put it over here. We're not trying to burn the church. So the first one that Alexis is going to light is going to be in memory of the mothers that are no longer physically here, but they still live in your heart, in your spirit. So we're going to take a minute to just be present. Miss Dawn, she's nervous because she was supposed to do this. Oh, she's not nervous. All right. Okay. This next candle that we're going to light over here, Alexis, we're going to put it on this side. Watch your step. Let's just move it down here. This one is in memory of mothers who have lost their children. Whether they lost their children while they were still pregnant, whether they lost their children to illness, or whether they lost their children to violence. We want to remember our mothers in our hearts and our mothers whose children reside in the heart. All right. Well, first let me open up with the scripture. As I prepare to do that, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be used by you. As the saying goes, Lord, please lessen me. Fill me up with all of you. The devil's been busy today. Not having the internet programs to be printed. But Lord, you know, this is your day. It is your way. Please give me a word to speak to the mothers. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. So today we're coming from the book of Isaiah. It's Isaiah, the 41st chapter, the 9th through the 10th verse. I'll be reading from the NIV version. Feel free to stand when you found it. Again, that's Isaiah, the 41st chapter, the 9th through the 10th verse. And it reads, I took you from the ends of the earth, from its farthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. My topic for today is mothering is a God-sized assignment. You should have a handout, and I'm not necessarily going to use the handout, but I'll let you know why the handout exists. So the scripture is not a typical Mother's Day scripture. When I went to the eye doctor to pick up my contacts, one of the people who works there said, are you going to be talking about Mary? And I said, no, I'm not. And the reason it's not a typical Mother's Day scripture is because, as most of you know, I'm not a typical preacher. So we're going to talk a little bit about what this scripture means. First, let me just start by saying mothering isn't easy. And in the text, it's connected to a time for the Israelites in which things were very challenging. No one tells us the challenges that await us as mothers. They don't tell us all of the sleepless nights we're going to have. What usually happens is that when we first give birth, what we hear is, wait until they're about 4 to 6 months and then you'll get some sleep. Then when we think we're finally sleeping, they get the terrible 2s and 3s. And people tell us, just wait wait until they're about 4 or 5 and things will get better. And then it's time for them to go to school. So that's the pickups, the drop-offs, and the homework, if you weren't already doing that in preschool. So then we can't wait until they turn 18, because 18 is supposed to be the miraculous age that they become adults. We know how that turns out. So what no one actually tells us is that we will be mothers for the rest of our lives. And that even after we have passed away, our spirits still live on in our children. That's what people don't tend to tell us. Mothering is a gift that can sometimes carry the biggest burdens. Here we find the Israelites heavily burdened. They are in the midst of an experience where they keep hoping things will get better, only to find over and over and over again there are a multitude of hurdles that they must get over. Now, some of you know my husband Joe, who's up in the top, that he and I, we have 5 beautiful children. One of our oldest children, 2 of our oldest children I didn't birth, but one of them I had the privilege to raise for the majority of her life, and the second one I was in her life for the majority of hers. So we have what some people would call a blended family. I had bonus children. And having a blended family is hard in itself. There's multiple complexities to that. But what I want to just take a moment is to ask you to just listen to me tell a story about when I realized I was a mother. So I had babysat for years. Even when my oldest niece was born, I helped to babysit her. The pleasure, though, was you could always give the children back. And then I got pregnant. And when I got pregnant, the doctors actually told me in a visit that I went with my mother that I needed to have an abortion because my daughter, I didn't know it was a daughter at that time, they said my child was going to be born with severe developmental disabilities. And the reason for this was because prior to me knowing I was pregnant, I had gotten sick, and I had to take some really potent medication. So hearing that, my immediate response was no. And before anyone thinks it's because I'm moralistically something, it was not because of anything moralistic, it was because I love Joe. And I knew that the Lord was going to bless our child. In whatever way, the Lord was going to bless us. So, get to the hospital, have the baby turns out to be Alexis, and she was beautiful and healthy. We were ecstatic. Now all I wanted to do was go home and get some sleep. Because that's what we say, we get bigger and bigger, it gets heavier and heavier, we get tired and tired, and all we want to do is give birth because we think we're going to get some sleep. I went home, and the first day that it was just Alexis and I had that realization. I was no longer by myself. I no longer had this thing that we call now me time. There was a child that I was responsible for the rest of my life. That's a huge awakening experience. I had both love and fear at the same time. I remember looking at her as I did simultaneously with the next 2 children I had the privilege to birth, Alexandria and then Joseph. I remember looking at them as babies and tears running down my face, individually for each one of them, wondering if I was good enough, wondering if I could do this thing that we call mothering. I'm giving you this story because I'm sure that some of you in the room can relate to this, that you wonder, how am I going to protect my children? Am I going to be good enough? Millennials, it is important for you to listen to the wisdom of mothers that have had children before. However, our senior mothers, meaning mothers who have done this, seasoned mothers, it's important for you to know that what people are looking for is guidance, not criticism. And this is where I'm going to sit in the text today. Because sometimes what happens, the reason we get this, am I a good good enough mother is we get it because we've received messages about this high standard of mothering that gets passed down from generation to generation. And instead of us being able to love and support, we keep piling on the requirements. You gotta do more. You gotta be more. And the more we pile it on, the more it creates something that is impossible for a mother to be able to do. So this is where we're going to sit in the text. Let me tell you a little bit about the Israelites, but let me grab a prop. I like props. So the Israelites were in captivity. And they were in captivity because of actions that they did. It's important for us to recognize that the Israelites were God's chosen people. He selected them. He had a covenant with them, which meant that he made a commitment to them. His commitment was to love them, to protect them, and to bless them and their children abundantly throughout the years. But you know there is that saying that God takes a chance when he blesses us. That was the same with the Israelites. That's the same with us today. The more the Lord blesses us, the more we sometimes forget it's the Lord that's blessing us and we think it's us. Right. So here the Israelites did just that. They got a little cocky. They got a little full of themselves and they were like, oh, we got this. So they started to do what? Worship idol gods. And we'll come back to that because sometimes we think that that just happened then. But we do the same today. So they're worshiping idol gods, and they're going about doing things that they know that the Lord would not want them to do, but they forgot who blessed them. They forgot who they are. Yeah. So what ends up happening in here is they get into captivity, where we find them in the text. And something about captivity that's important for us to understand is that captivity is painful. Yeah. Right? Captivity is where someone else controls everything about you. Yeah. Typically, this begins with a physical domination. Notice my chains. This is physical domination. But after physical domination happens, the longer they control you physically, it transfers into a mental and emotional submission. You start to be who they say you are. The longer I'm in these chains, the more I am these chains. Mothers, I'm going somewhere with this. Remember I mentioned some of our mothering messages are painful and embedded actually in slavery. What I mean by that is I propose that our societal definitions and expectations of motherhood are actually places where mothers find themselves in psychological captivity. We are in chains, leading us to believe that we need to be all things and do all things. I believe there's a scripture about that, but it's not talking about you mothers, right? But that's what we come to believe, that we need to do all things and be all things. And so we find ourselves consistently not measuring up, so we are physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, psychologically exhausted. We're just tired because we're in captivity. I took a moment to be able to Google this thing called motherhood, and these are the words that came up. Hardworking, patient, humility, kindness, simplicity, perseverance, tolerance, forgiveness, understanding, farsightedness, consistent, calm, organized, loving, friendly. Shall I keep going? How can you be all that? Those messages put us into captivity. Captivity. But unfortunately, what we don't ever realize is we don't realize we're in captivity. But today I'm here to send a message that says that if you decide to accept the mothering assignment, you must have the strength of God. You can't do it without it. You just can't do it without it. And if you try to do it without him, then you become vulnerable to the enslaved mentality that causes us to live in consistent state of exhaustion. Mothering is a God-sized assignment. It's a God-sized assignment. So care of their children and simply make sure everyone was good. Except yourself. And unfortunately, when we're doing all that, we unconsciously create children who may start to believe they're entitled and expect you to do these things for them. And if you're not doing these things for them, then there's something wrong with you. And what happens because we're in captivity, mothers, we buy it. We must not be good enough mothers because we're not saving them from themselves. That's a challenge for us to have to recognize. See, I put Tupac in your handout. Can you take a minute to look at your handout? Now, Tupac was a lyrical genius, but I didn't know he was a lyrical genius until my husband introduced me to him, because Tupac has some songs I can't listen to. But this particular song is a song that really illustrates this kind of challenge that us mothers are in. And I want you to remember, we are talking about the challenges that the Israelites themselves were experiencing. Right. So don't forget the connection. But look at Tupac's writing here. And a couple of things that I like to point out. I'm going to read a little bit of it if I can see it. It says, I love you, you are appreciated. When I was young me and my mama had beef, 17 years old, kicked out on the streets. Though back at that time, I never thought I'd see your face. Ain't a woman alive that could take my mama's place. Suspended from school and scared to go home, I was a fool with the big boys, breaking all the rules. I shed tears with my baby sister over the years, and the poorer than the other little kids, and I can barely see. And even though we had different daddies, the same drama, when things were wrong, who did they blame? Mama. I want to go down a little bit further, because he says, and even as a crack fiend, mama, you always, well, some of y'all know this song, what was she?
Black Queen.
A Black Queen. Later on in this write-up, he says, I have to thank the Lord for you, mama. In this write-up, I want you to read Tupac's song, because what Tupac does is he gives the great illustration of the complexity of being a mother. You get the unquestionable love, but also you get the quick to blame anger when you're not saving children from their choices. It also means that mothers, you got to recognize that you're just not perfect. Now, let me say something though, because sometimes when I give conversations about mothers, people get a little confused. And they think, oh yeah, that's me, I'm doing it all. I'm being it all, I'm doing it all. Mothers, some of you aren't.
Right.
So it is important to understand, if we go back to the Israelites were in captivity because of their poor choices. The Israelites' children therefore suffered because of their poor choices. The Israelites had to deal with their children living in captivity and having a painful life because of their poor choices. So please, let's not get it twisted. Everyone is not trying to be all things and do all things. Some of us have bought into that thought process that I need to have more me time and that our child comes second. Your children suffer because of your choices. The Israelites' children suffered because of their choices. So when we're hearing this, and maybe the reason that some of us do too much and some of us do too little is because we can't quite get out of the captivity and slave mentality. But we got to be able to understand that you got to move through it, because some of you show up too much wanting an applause, and some of you don't show up at all and still want an applause. That was happening with the Israelites. You got to understand. So how do we get these unhealthy behaviors, and how do we get this enslaved mentality? Well, let me just take a walk just for a moment into our history. So one of the things I like to say that some people just kind of blink their eyes twice about is black women, we mothered the United States. What I mean by that is during slavery times, black women were expected to nurture their children and the children of their masters. They were expected to nurture them. So in this, their nurturance was not just physical, just so we're clear, at times included their own breast milk being given to a child that wasn't theirs. But it wasn't just physical, it was also emotional and psychological. They were the key factors in all of these children's early development, which research shows is a crucial time in a child's life. But they were essentially responsible for two households. Two households. And represented, theirs and their masters, while still expected to do manual labor. Our foremothers were in captivity, just like the Israelites. It may benefit us to remember that our foremothers were auctioned, paraded naked like livestock. They were being bred, they were being bought, they were being looked at for their fertility and their physical strength. They were being bred to do all things and be all things. And yet we have bought into that. There's a problem with that. These roles were forced into them. But sadly, these messages have been passed down from generation to generation, and we now happily accept them as a standard of motherhood. We are trying to live up to an enslaved definition of motherhood, which is causing us this level of exhaustion. And some of these kind of consequences to this is we even have a skewed perspective of what a healthy relationship looks like. We negate our own health, struggling with depression and anxiety while using drugs and alcohol as a coping strategy. This is why the text is so important. During the Israelites' most difficult time, God knew they needed to hear a word from him. They knew it. And so with this, he knew that they had been beaten down, they had been forced to prioritize other people's beliefs, they had been forced to put other people's expectations over their own. He knew that they had been in those dark, quiet moments when they felt alone and confused. He knew they needed to be reminded that they were his chosen people, and he loved them. Oh, mothers, how many times have we felt so powerless and alone, and all you wanted to do was know that the Lord loved you. All you wanted to do was to know that he had you. You needed comfort because you tossed and turned and worried. The Israelites needed to be reminded that they were chosen. Mothers, we need to be reminded that we're chosen. So in this, we got to understand that when we take on this assignment, that having that chosen status means we benefit from God's love, his guidance, and his protection. He can get us out of this enslaved mentality that keeps us chained to be all things, to do all things, or do absolutely nothing. Neither of those are good. So let me take you back just a moment to my story about Alexis. She didn't always do all this. She's going to be mad later on, but she'll be all right. So immediately after Joe and I I gave birth, Joe was just present, but immediately after Alexis was born, Joe looked at her foot. He said, "Is this something wrong with her foot?" Nobody else noticed. Nobody. Went home, I did several well baby checks. Finally, in one well baby check, they realized that Alexis had a club foot, which essentially means her foot was turned inward. Right? But because she was so small at that time, it was kind of hard to tell. But interestingly enough, not for her dad. So, with this being said, having this diagnosis was hard for me. I was only 21 years old, and I had to take her to appointments every other week and had to get her a corrective shoe. This corrective shoe I had to purchase from Stride Right, and it cost $60. And I had to purchase it all the time because her foot was ever growing. At night, Alexis had to sleep in this. I want you to imagine a baby having to go to sleep in this. Every night, this is what I put on her feet. Yes, I kept it because it reminds me of how far the Lord has brought her and me. When she was one, however, her feet hadn't corrected enough. Her foot, it was only one foot, hadn't corrected enough. So the doctor told me they had to break it and reset it. You gotta break it and reset it, and she's one. The fear and the devastation that came over me, my heart dropped. We had the surgery, and I wouldn't leave her side. I remember my daddy saying to me, "You need to go home." And I said, "No, I can't go home." He said, "No, you need to go home. Me and your mom got this. We'll stay." And they did stay, and I went home and got some sleep. But it was one of the scariest times that I ever had in my life when it came to loving my child. In this process, though, because I was so afraid, I became overwhelmed and went into overdrive of Carole. What that means is that I started to fall into this enslaved mentality, I invisibilized God and I elevated myself. I was going to help her through this. I was gonna. God was nowhere in the picture. Joe was nowhere in the picture. I invisibilized everyone around me because I bought into it's my job. I invisibilized God. And I did this again just out of fear. Fear is disempowering and leads us to choose captivity over freedom. And it leads us to stress and strain on our relationships. Now, I've said a lot, and I've told you that mothering is a God-sized assignment. But what some of you might be asking me is, and so what? I've also said earlier that when you take on the assignment, you need the strength from God. So some of you may be saying, can you help me understand how I get that strength? Because you didn't set it up. I might be feeling pretty bad right now. So how am I going to get this strength? Let me give you a couple of pieces. I'm going right back to the text. In the text, we must recognize that the Lord said that the people were chosen. Now, some of you might have to think to yourself, why would God need to remind people that they're chosen? If you're chosen, you're chosen. Well, God has to remind people that they're chosen because when you're in captivity, you forget who you belong to. You forget whose you are. So God had to show up in this text because they had been in captivity for years. And this wasn't the first time, just so we're clear. Israelites just kept doing it. History was just repeating itself. They kept going in and out and in and out. But this was a daunting time for them, and the Lord knew that they had forgotten that they were chosen. So the first thing that we have to remember is that we are chosen. You're chosen for this mothering assignment. I don't care how it came to be. You're chosen for the mothering assignment. And He chose you. Not somebody else. Not if it was an accident or if we planned it or whatever it is. God still chose you. I don't care how much money you had. I don't care what you was doing. I don't care who you was around. And technically, I don't care who you was with. Guess what? God chose you. And if God chose you, then God put you in this assignment for a reason. So here, the Israelites are being reminded, I chose you. You my people. I pulled you from the farthest ends. I did this. Depend on me. Know whose you are. Then the next thing that the text shows us is that fear immobilizes us. The Lord said, do not fear. Do not fear. Remember all through the stories I talked to you about how afraid I was here, afraid I was there, or that the enslaved mentality makes us fearful as mothers. The Lord has to tell us not to be afraid because fear takes us away from Him. When we're afraid, we pull away from God. We should pull closer to know that He's our security, He's our support, He's all in all, but instead fear makes us say, wait. Fear makes us withdraw. Fear confuses us. Fear takes us outside of ourselves. Fear leads us to unhealthy coping strategies. That's what fear does, and that's what fear was doing to the Israelites. The Israelites were afraid, which is how they got into captivity in the first place. So fear puts us enslaved. So here God is saying, don't fear. And it's not saying that fear is a bad emotion. Please don't walk away with that. But He's simply saying that when you know what I know, when you feel what I feel, the fear is going to irk up in you, but then you're going to say, who got this? Oh, God got this. God got this. So He's reminding them, don't fear. You don't have to walk around in this fear mentality. You can be liberated because that's what I do. Then God says, He's going to give strength. Some of you have heard me talk about this, but we struggle with this strong women mentality. Therefore, we struggle with this strong black woman mentality. That's the worst thing that could ever be created for us. We're strong. What does that mean? What does that mean? That you can carry happen because they realize I don't care about my circumstances, I don't care about who I'm around, I don't care about what nobody's saying about me because God has given me the strength I need to persevere. Not I'm the strong one, He's the strong one. He gives us the strength. Stop walking around wanting to be it all and do it all. Trust that He has it for you. So in here He's talking about He is the strength. Now, if we're clear about the text, God showed up, as I said, while the Israelites were in captivity to give them peace and strength. However, the reason that He was able to do this was because they had already established a relationship with God. And God had established a relationship with them. So many of us only come to church on Mother's Day. And sometimes we have the phrase that sometimes make people uncomfortable, but sometimes we have the pimp mentality about God. We want Him to satisfy our needs. We want Him to do what we want Him to do, when we want Him to do it, how we want Him to do it, and then walk away talking about, next time. You can't do that with the Lord. You can't do that. The reason that God came back and said, I've got you Israelites, I'm going to let you hear a word from me, is because He realized they're not just trying to use me for the moment, they're in it. They're in it. Sunday service is not enough. I'm sorry. Sunday service isn't enough. You've got to foster that relationship so that you can actually feel His strength. Go into that one little scripture in the Bible and reading it, trust in the Lord with all that. What does that mean? Why was it written? Who was talking in that moment? Why did they need to know to trust Him? If you don't know that, all you're doing is reading the scripture talking about that's going to get me by. The memes are not going to get you by. The social media pieces aren't going to get you by. They're not going to get you by. You got to have that level of strength. So with this, you notice that I decided to keep these chains on. And I got to tell you, mine is all out. I don't know how anybody preaches because I'm hot. And part of it, the longer I kept the chains on, I actually forgot they were there.
Say it, Carole.